for the morning, and it's my pleasure to invite Nivruti Rai, the country head Intel India, Vice President of the DCG Group Intel Corporation, on to the stage as the next speaker. Nivruti, as you get your video and audio on, I'll read out your bio so that the audience can get to know. Nivruti is the country head Intel India and Vice President in the Data Platforms Group called as DPG at Intel based in Bangalore. She provides overall engineering and business unit leadership, leads operations for the site, driving innovation, the cross-group efficiencies, and execution for the engineering teams, delivering the global products. She also leads engagements with the national and the local governments and policymakers, as well as collaboration with ecosystem players to enable innovation and entrepreneurship. Nivruti is responsible for DPG India's site engineering and execution, focus on delivering platforms, and also leads the sales and marketing group in strengthening the customer ecosystem, academic, and the research lab partnerships that we have in India. She joined Intel in 1995 and has worked in the CPU development in Oregon, led the effort for chip power in microprocessors, and pioneered the use of the error correction codes to reduce operating voltages and memories, becoming a principal engineer in 2003. She moved to India in 2005 to manage and ramp the mobile platform technologies used for handheld and the laptop computers. She has earned a bachelor's degree in mathematics, statistics, physics, and chemistry, and a master's degree in applied mathematics, both from the University of Lucknow in India. She also holds a master's degree in industrial engineering from Oregon State University and a board of director certification from Harvard Business School. She has been issued a US patent and has authored several technical papers in the IC design, methodologies, and operations research. Nivruti, it's our pleasure to host you. Over to you. We'll be sharing the slides. You can get started while we bring the slides up.
Thank you very, very much, Naveen. I must say that my introduction felt too long. If I were to introduce myself in one line, let me just say my introduction. I am a technologist and I'm very passionate about India and how can I power India with all I have in Intel. So that's my introduction. But before I share the content of my slides with all of you, I must tell you that I'm very, very proud to be here. And, every year when I meet people, this time, we are meeting online, but whether online or whether face to face, I really get energized by meeting all of you because this is one forum where I feel that not only I get to share my views, but I get to learn so much from all of you. And that energizes me. All of the passion that I talked about for India actually comes from you. So thank you very much for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to talk to all of you. So we heard this fantastic presentation by Vinod Dham. What more can I tell you in terms of technology? He's the father of Pentium, and I really enjoyed his discussion. What I will try to do is to share with you where are we in terms of technology era, what is happening in India. Many of you would know, perhaps even more than me, how India is transforming. Yet, I want to connect what is happening in technology to what will it enable India in its transformation. And then I will talk about is technology sufficient or we require not just convergence of technology, but alignment with business models because in the end, all of the patents, all of the research is amazing. But if it does not translate into value for humanity, then it is only supposed to be, in the books kept somewhere, rusting and dusting. Then I will talk about, what is the India model that we should talk about? And lastly, why are we here? What do we need to do? It's very easy to talk and then, meet next year again in the ISA conference. But what do we do together? And before I finish my presentation, what should I sign up with you to do for India? So that's how I will end my presentation. I'm going to the very first slide. I talked about what is happening in the technology era. So, looking at the last 20 years, there was a time, we were looking at compute and we were looking at, our personal computers. We were looking at, maybe even phones. Those were the era that I would like to call as the compute era. And we were so excited about the little capability that we would get on our phones. I remember 25 megahertz is what I started with when I was going to college. Then when it became from 25 megahertz to 33, I said, wow, what speed. So that was the era that we, many of us, many of you are very young, you probably don't, you think 25 megahertz, what is she talking about? But many of us have lived through that. Then, during the 2000s, began the connected era, began the era where we do have devices sitting in front of us, but a whole lot of compute is being done in the cloud. We need the connectivity so much that the cloud can quickly send us information, and it is available in our handheld devices, whether it is our mobile phones, or whether it is our PCs, whether it's our tablet. What is more important is where are we getting into? Many of the analysis talks about 50 billion connected devices, 100 billion connected devices. The era that we are stepping into in the next 10 to 20 years is going to redefine the way we live. There will be some one analysis that I'm quoting here calls out 100 billion intelligent connected devices. So from compute era to connected era, we are getting into the devices where we are going to be living in what is called an intelligent device era. Everything that we will have as a compute device or as an electronic device will be intelligent. But more value for us as human beings is going to come from the fact that every device will be connected and talking to each other. Yesterday it was very interesting. I'm on vacation. So I was in an evening party and we were talking about autonomous driving. And I said, guys, what will be the fun thing that will happen in autonomous driving? Not just the fact that your car is, driving by itself. In India, it will come later. But in US, we're already seeing Tesla doing a lot of it. But the fun will come from the fact that each car or each vehicle that will be on the road will actually be talking to each other, and the intelligence will come from there. So, intelligent devices and connected devices is what we are looking at, and that's where the value will come from. So, request you to go to the next slide, please. Many of you know, and I am living this along with many of you who are, living in India. But I feel the excitement of transforming India. So I have taken the liberty to show you very quickly in the first row what is happening in India. Many of you, the reason I said 25 megahertz is very few of us, like me. You are living in an era where you talk about, gigahertz, but India is very young. The number of people that are dependent on the young India is getting fewer and fewer. The middle class is rising. I was explaining to my leadership team in Intel that no longer is the demographic of India. It looks like a pyramid. It actually is beginning to look like a mushroom, where the middle class is the base. And then I already talked about young India. So, what is this young India expecting and doing? This young India loves to consume digital data. So, if you look at India, how much are we consuming in terms of data? 12 gigabytes a month. How did we enable this? We enable this by providing data at 20 cent per gig as compared to $10, which is in United States. So we made it cheap enough such that we Indians who love to consume information through media, for example, can afford to do that because we need 20 cent per gig kind of information, kind of data, such that people can consume. So the necessity drove the invention, and that's what we are living through. That's what the young India wants. I also want to highlight what did the government do? We heard from Dr. Ashwath. Our government is driving a lot of transformation in India. So you look at the national level platforms, GSTN, Goods and Services Tax Network, millions, 10 plus million businesses are part of it. You look at unified payment interface. India jumped several technologies, going from cash driven economy to digital wallet driven economy, and we jumped the credit card. And I assure you, Vinod Dham talked about it, Dr. Ashwath talked about it. The pandemic is going to push us to jump many other technologies, which they referred and I will also refer to. In terms of investment, what excites me is if you look at the last 20 years of investment, half of it, roughly half of it, came in the last 5 years. So clearly, we as the Indians, we as the innovators, and we as government are doing something exciting that people are investing. Half of the last 20 years investment came in the last 4 years. Now, we know what is happening in India. What will it enable us? It will enable us to double our economy in the next few years. And in the doubling, we believe that more than $1 trillion will come from the digital economy. What are those technologies? What are those contributors, enablers? I really believe that our startups, our digital native innovators, both Dr. Ashwath and Vinod talked about Atmanirbhar Bharat. My view on Atmanirbhar Bharat is a motivation that the government is trying to do to help us drive the innovation, push the impetus on innovation. Atmanirbhar Bharat doesn't just mean that we will build everything for ourselves, but what it is trying to do is to create that passion inside us for our country and push the innovation. To me, that's the critical part of Atmanirbhar Bharat. We all know that we have 250 million students going in kindergarten through 12. We have 3 million of graduate students. And I will tell you my own analysis that I did. For a company like mine, I have 1 million engineers graduating each year. Yes, many of them may not be able to speak English, but I know that at least 30 to 40,000 are very relevant to what Intel is doing. And I believe that we can provide and have been providing world class talent from India. Lastly, I believe business model innovation is critical. Every one of us have been talking about 5G, have been talking about AI. Today, AI is simply scratching the surface of opportunity. Bulk of AI driven revenues are coming from recommendation engines. What we see in Amazon, what we see in Netflix, and so on, even Facebook. But is that opportunity it? I don't think so. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Bulk is what you haven't seen. And the pandemic will make us see many of that. So I really feel India is a clean slate. We can show many new business models. XaaS has been the buzzword as a service, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, telemedicine as a service, and whatnot. All of these opportunities will be enabled by many of the technology I referred to in the past a little bit: cloudification, AI, data analytics, connectivity, and manufacturing. I love the fact that Vinod stressed a lot on manufacturing, and I too believe that manufacturing is critical. I'm very happy to share that whether it is a Samsung or whether it is an Apple, thanks to those companies, they are investing a lot in India for cell phone manufacturing. But there are many other manufacturing that we can focus on. So we together need to sign up to drive the value creation out of this transforming India. Each one of us is responsible in whatever we can do best. Everyone who is in this conference needs to take that ownership, that what will my contribution be in the transforming India. Don't look at the speakers here alone. What can you do is what I'm here to ask you and to have you contribute. Can I please request to go on the next slide? Next slide, please. Before I start this slide, let me take you to 2000. I know a lot of you were born there, so 2000 is a good year to talk about. In 2000, if I were to talk about one teraflop, one teraflop floating point operations, do you know how much would it have cost us? $50 million. Not only would it have cost $50 million, you know how much would the power be? 800 watt. We certainly cannot hold it. We cannot certainly put it on our laps. And the space it would need is 1,600 square feet to set that one teraflop operation. Can I tell you that one teraflop operation today costs $100 and 5 watts of power? In our phones, many of our phones, I don't want to name names of which phones, but many of our phones have more than one teraflop operations that those phones can operate. Let me tell you one more thing. If we were looking at a car which is autonomous, and like I said, in India, my passion for a version of autonomous driving is to create collision avoidance. I want to save the 17 deaths that happen in an hour. But do you know, for complete autonomous driving, the kind of compute or server that we need to be sitting in the car is only 8 teraflop. Only 8 teraflop. So that's where the compute has come. And yes, there are many people who think that Moore's law is going to see the end. I am a believer that Moore's law is a prod to you to innovate. It is a motivation and incentive for you to show me the doubling of transistors that can happen. Vinod have talked about the multi-chip strategy, the tile strategy. I don't care whether it comes from tiling, whether it comes from multi-chip. I don't care. I am here to challenge you to show me how Moors can be alive, and I believe it will be alive. Whether it is through packaging technology, we have the ability to put 50 pieces of silicon together. So Moore's law is a law that challenges us, keep me alive, and we as innovators have got to look at how do we keep it alive. Now, going from there to what has happened, I briefly talked to you about technology innovations, and I talked about compute era, connectivity era, and intelligence device era. What did those eras provide us? They provided us internet. They provided us smartphones. They provided us cloud computing, providing us cloud computing. I talked about a little bit about AI, talked about electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle. But having said that, why did I share the story of 2000? One teraflop was costing $50 million. We could not have imagined to make a car in the year 2000, which is autonomous, because nobody would be able to buy it. Now, when one teraflop is $100, and if you look at the innovations that have come from batteries like lithium ion, for example, and over the last 5 to 7 years, they have reduced in price up to 90%. So, what is the story that I'm trying to bring out here? The story I'm trying to bring out here, there needs to be convergence of technology in alignment with business models. Only then we can create value for humanity. My whole goal is How can I leverage technology and change the lives of every single person on the earth? I'm not here to sell or pitch for Intel, but I must tell you, I'm loving working from my new CEO, Bob Swan, because he's created a vision where he says, I want to use technology and impact and influence and change the life of every single person on this earth. So, with that, I'm looking at the goal. How can I get technology? How can I get business model innovation? How can I partner with the government to have, we heard about from Dr. Ashwath, we heard about technology and regulatory sandbox partnership. How can I leverage all of that and improve the lives of our people by enabling good quality innovations at a scalable model and lower cost? Some of the business model innovations, we heard about XaaS in my previous slide, but there is, on-demand services. There is gig economy, the likes of Ubers and Ola. We see so many people able to leverage cars because I live in Bangalore, but in going from a Whitefield to Indiranagar is about, I would say, 15 kilometers, and it costs me 200 rupees. So many people can aspire to leverage this, better standard of living through these business model innovations. So we owe us better quality of life. Each one of you are the privileged ones who are pushing economy through technology, through business model innovation. So request you to go to the next slide. I look at what can we do. If you can build the whole slide, unfortunately, I would like to see the whole foil. So I would like to share is a little bit. I talked about we need to drive innovations. We need to drive friendlier policies and regulations and build solutions for India. Leverage academia, leverage researchers, leverage startups. I'm very proud to say that India is like the third or fourth. We always are looking at whether third or fourth in conjunction with Israel. Regardless, third or fourth largest startup nation. How can we leverage all of us? How can we leverage? Vinod also talked about open source architecture. I am a firm believer that if you need to leverage the intellect of multiple people and push innovation for scale and for cost, building an open source platform, whether it's hardware, whether it's software, open source is critical. So leverage collective intelligence, focus on what is it that India needs. India is a very country with a large number of people. How can we create value for each one of them and build a technology which is specific for India? And on top of a robust governance is the model that I believe we need to work on. So if I may request us to go to the very last slide that I have. So now we know the framework that we need India to build. We know the resources India has. We know the constraints that India has. Yes, we are a country which is $2,000 GDP per capita, whereas I look at average world is 10. We have to grow 5x to match. We have the ability of intellect, and therefore open source is important to leverage the intelligence and innovations coming from all. Now, to make the next leap, so we're all looking at a very good future for India and opportunities that India has. Vinod also talked about what has the pandemic done. The pandemic has actually simply pushed us to do things faster. All of this was already in motion, but we need to look at how do we do it faster. So what do we have to do? We have to look at building electronics, building semiconductor ecosystem in India and harness India's strength to build solutions through our electronics capability. I therefore feel ISA has, a lot of responsibility and a lot of opportunity to help push the next leap. Vinod talked a lot about manufacturing. I also believe that manufacturing is absolutely essential to drive innovation. I talked about customized IP, customized use for India, our own solutions, and therefore I believe that it is important to look into manufacturing. Two things which are important in manufacturing is quality and scale. If we are able to drive quality, we can dream our exports to be much larger than what it is today. I'm really happy to tell you that what's happening in Noida for phones is amazing. We are manufacturing for the world. Similarly, what can we do in the hardware space, in the silicon space, in the platform space, where quality can be paramount? Not only quality, scale is important. While Atmanirbhar Bharat to me is a motivator, but I want to look at how can manufacturing in India be for manufacturing for the world. Let's look at the opportunity this COVID has created, this geopolitical issues have created, and sign up to work together to drive manufacturing for the world. Lastly, I see huge opportunity with you and with me together. I really believe today, before I leave my presentation, I want to sign up with you. Can we work together and build a roadmap of technology for India, a roadmap of technology that drives solutions which is the need of the hour, whether it is for telehealth, whether it is for education, whether it is for e-retail, whether it is for manufacturing. That's a whole lot of technology requirement. Some of them we are beginning, some of them we are mature, some of them we are very, very nascent. Can we build a roadmap? I, in Intel, work based on roadmap. Today I will do this, tomorrow I will do this, such that day after tomorrow I can enable this. Can we start together? And ISA picking up a little bit of an onus where we say, okay, day after tomorrow, I need this capability where I need to be enabling the 1.3 billion Indians to have access to a good healthcare, a good doctor. With that, I work backwards. Oh, for a good telehealth, here are the technologies we need. Here's the connectivity we need for this village near Azamgarh. Here are the platforms I need. Here is the cloud solution I need. Let's work backward and build a technology roadmap for India for the next 5 years to enable solutions that impact the life of every single Indian and many people around the world. So thank you very much. Really enjoyed the other presentations and looking forward to what I have to hear from others. Thank you very much. Namaskara.
Thank you, Nivruti. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So, Nivruti, thank you so much. That was very encouraging. And then I think based on how clearly you put your thoughts together, there are few questions, and I'll pick maybe two of them
Okay.
for now. The one question where you showed saying like the slides which about saying for the solutions in India, the question is, can we replicate the use cases of other countries for implementing the solutions in India?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll give you one example. As Intel and in partnership with many other companies, we are enabling 5G in, let's say, Korea and United States. What I want to do is not just build our own custom 5G requirement, but leverage many of the implementations and to it add the little spice or the flavor that India needs. For example, urban density in India is huge. No other country has this kind of urban density. Now, there is where I need that special spice that I want to add as a different flavor that meets my need. But do I need to build everything grounds up and new? Absolutely not. And that's where I think the onus is on companies like us who are providing solutions to look at India, to look at the partners, the Wipros, the Mahindras, the HCL, the government, and say, okay, here is what I have, here is the difference India needs, and how quickly can we implement 5G. So, completely with you, Naveen, that we can learn. I don't have to fall and scrape my knee every time somebody else fell. I want to learn from them, and I just want to begin running. Is the way I look at it.
Very good. And then Nivruti, while you were answering that, actually the next question connect to the thoughts that you were putting together. So the question comes is that, so now like with company like Intel, which you have been leading and representing as one of the many technology drivers and then biggest in India, how can Intel enable some of these either improvement in educations and or enabling the manufacturing that we are talking about? If you can share your thoughts.
Absolutely, Naveen. The reason I said it is because I am in it. Let me tell you what I'm trying to do, and I'll give you three examples addressing all of the questions that you had. First example, what am I doing in terms of manufacturing? I'm happy to tell you that I have built laptops, and me as Intel is only providing recipe and holding hands to government of Kerala, and we built homegrown laptops in Kerala with many of the companies that are from India. Yes, we did import some parts because not everything was manufactured, but we put together laptops for the needs of our Kerala government, Kerala schools. And I'm happy to tell you, we, as Kerala company, the laptop or the initiative is called Coconics. We've actually won tenders for Coconics to provide laptops for others as well. So that's example number one. We leverage Haryana to build memory modules, M.2 memory modules, and now we are looking at network boxes. So we are doing our bit to get the Indian ecosystem to start manufacturing. The third thing I want to talk to you about, and that's very near and dear to me, you said health and education. I want to tell you today 40% of Indian schools are private, 60% are government, and many of them are in rural areas. Now, many of the very fortunate, us, our children are going through online education. The students that are sitting in villages are not. So I'm happy to tell you, us as Intel and government and some academia partners, we are looking at building connectivity in the village. And our first trial is in January. Unfortunately, COVID delayed us, but January we will see implementation in a very far off village. The technology is amazing. Many innovations are homegrown patents because our connectivity doesn't care about line of sight, the terrain, and we will be implementing this. What will this enable? This will enable telehealth. A fantastic John Hopkins cardiologist can see a patient sitting in Azamgarh. And similarly, rural schools can dream of being educated online. And their business model innovation is also important because I cannot expect everybody to have a laptop. So we are looking at all of that, and I'm as committed to India, as I expect you to be, and I'm doing my bit. I'm not just speaking; I am in it with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nivruti. That was very clear and loud to all of us about what you're driving as a role model, and each one of us continue doing that from our side. Right.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you very
Thank you, Nivruti. This was a great talk on actually telling us that how we can make solutions from India for the world. Right. So, on behalf of the ISA team, thank you for taking time out and giving this keynote address for all of us.